Good morning, monsters, and welcome to the very first episode of 2024 of Monsters on the Edge. Happy New Year, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to this episode. I want to start off the new year on a great note here. If you guys have not checked out Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society, my team's work on YouTube, check it out. Are you interested in the paranormal, ghosts, spirits, and the metaphysical? How about Mothman, Bigfoot, and other cryptids? What about UFOs, UAPs, and other anomalous phenomenon? Then you need to check out Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society. We have all that and more. Watch our series, Caps Road Trip, where we travel across the U.S. in search of these phenomena and bring you not only the history of these locations, events, and encounters, but evidence that we capture along the way. Alongside our team of researchers and investigators, you never know who will be joining in on the investigations. Are you interested in Bigfoot in Upper Michigan? Check out Finding Huyton, a series documenting the Sasquatch activity on a very special 80-acre property just outside of Menominee that has been a hotspot since 2012. Want even more? Check out our podcasts. Whispers from the Dark is the official podcast of Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society and brings you interviews with the top names in the field of paranormal to cryptids and more. Hear witnesses' accounts and go in depth with the CAPS team to hear more about our ongoing research. Are you more into cryptids? Find links to our all cryptid show, Monsters on the Edge, on the Untold Radio Network. If you're into spooky, subscribe now and you won't miss a minute of our brand new series coming soon, Spirits of Macville. Follow along as we uncover the haunted history dating back to 1877 of a very well-known location you may have never guessed would be haunted. Head on over to YouTube and hit that subscribe button and you won't miss a minute. That's right, guys. If you are interested in all things cryptids, anomalies, paranormal, we have everything that you ever wanted right there. We have a brand new episode coming out Saturday, the 7th, whatever the 7th is. It is the beginning of our new series, Spirits of Menominee. It is a multi-part documentary of all kinds of paranormal activity in Menominee, Michigan. And we also have a brand new episode of Caps Road Trip that will be airing later on this month, and it is going to be a great one. It is a haunted church in Cicero, Illinois. But guys, welcome again to Monsters on the Edge on the Untold Radio Network. If you want even more cryptids, you can head on over to Paraflix Paranormal Plus. It is an all paranormal and cryptid streaming platform. We have our show over there on the Trail of Undiscovered Beasts. You can get 10% off your first 3 months with promo code CAPS10, and it's just $3.99 a month. It is very similar to Netflix and the other streaming platforms. It's just all creepy stuff. So season 1 is out now, and season 2 should be coming out later this year. If you want to show your support for all things here at Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society, you can head on over to our website, wisconsincaps.com, and click on Shop Our Store. There you can find t-shirts and hoodies and sweatshirts, magnets, stickers, mugs, tote bags, and everything with our logo on it. You can wear it and display it and show your support. And while you're online, make sure you head on over to all of our other social media platforms. You can find us on Patreon, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Wisconsin Caps, and WI Caps on Instagram. Guys, if you have not checked it out yet, my book is out now. Bigfoot is Hiding. It is 248 full color pages, 8 by 10. It is a large book. I have a copy right here if you want to see it. There it is. Oh, it doesn't show up because of the green screen. There you go. Well, it's a big book. There you go. And it's all about Bigfoot on a very special 80-acre private property in Upper Michigan. It is over 10 years of evidence and research. And you can get that on Amazon for $35, or you can go to wisconsincaps.com and you can get yourself an autographed copy there. If you want to meet the Caps team in person, May 18th, 2024, this year, we are going to be at the 4th Annual Hodag Heritage Festival in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. And we are going to be June 1st at the Marinette Menominee Bigfoot and Paranormal Convention in Marinette, Wisconsin. And I have some library events coming up as well. You can find me in Cudahy, Wisconsin on February 6th, Brookfield, Wisconsin, June 17th, and Edgerton, Wisconsin on October 30th. That's what we got going on for now. Much more coming up, guys. It is just the beginning of the year. We got a couple more events that I can't announce just yet, but they're in progress. And if you guys want to show your support for all things here on the Untold Radio Network, here's how.
Hey, Untold Radio Network fans. Want exclusive perks and to support our channel? Introducing our YouTube membership program with 3 amazing levels. Get loyalty badges that level up to different cryptids the longer you're a supporter. How cool is that? You'll also get access to custom Bigfoot emojis and priority in chat. Upgrade to Backstage Pass for exclusive wallpapers, photos, status updates, discounted books, and merchandise. Go all in with the producer level for everything mentioned plus member shoutouts. Ready for an enhanced experience? Join now, pick your membership level, and let's make this journey even more exciting together.
All right, guys, we have right back. All right, guys, we are scheduled here for a live Q&A with the cast of Alaskan Killer Bigfoot. And we're working on this backstage because there's a lot of them, and we're trying to herd cats, which is always fun. But with me here in the studio right now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my guest, Jeff Davis.
Hello, Barnaby. Hello, everybody. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Welcome to the show, and Happy New Year to you and yours.
Happy New Year to you too, and everybody who's watching. As I got older, those Facebook memes that show people celebrating New Year's Eve, sleep in bed. That was me.
Yup, that's about right. I stayed up till midnight, but I didn't do anything. I stayed home. I actually was doing video editing. I finished up that new episode I was just talking about, so that's what I did for New Year's. Fun stuff, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, and so if anybody has managed on this federal holiday to drag yourself up to turn on the computer and like you're going blind from the screen, I appreciate it, and I'm sure everybody else does too.
Absolutely. I feel like a lot of people, we have 19 people watching right now at this moment. And I feel like New Year's Day was a very bad time to have a live podcast. And I did my Christmas one pre-recorded. And when we were working out this second interview with the cast of Alaskan Killer Bigfoot, they all picked days, and this was the one that everyone kind of agreed on. And I'm like, are you sure? Because this is New Year's Day. And they're all like, yes, I will be there. Super excited. And the amazing Jeff Davis showed up, and the rest of them are having a discussion about, Frank is trying to come on and it is not letting him or download. No. So Frank is hang on. Jeff, if you want to just please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Launch into something.
I'll work on Jeff here. Or Frank, I'm sorry.
Okay. Hey, everyone. While Barnaby's making this happen, I feel very, very privileged that I am a part of the Alaskan Killer Bigfoot television show. For some of us, an experience. Normally, this is not a secret. I have been on a number of different paranormal related television shows, and in part that's because I have degrees in anthropology, archaeology, and I had a commission in the United States Army, and I am not afraid of ridicule, because I was ridiculed my entire life. I'm saying things like, I have these degrees that are serious, I have this serious body of work, and yet I believe these odd and unusual things are really happening. And so I'm not afraid to go on television and say so. And so I have known the producer of Alaskan Killer Bigfoot, Brian Niffle, for quite some time from other projects. And so when he contacted me and said, Jeff, do you want to be a part of this? It was absolutely, because the show, the premise for the show, the people are real. Ash Naderhoff really is a slightly tougher, crazier survivalist than myself, and Frank, Keith, and DJ, they're all Native Americans. Kyle really is a bear guide, survival expert himself too, and so it's. You heard the expression, if I am high, it's because I stand on the shoulders of giants. And that's part of the problem in getting everybody together, is they're all so busy living their own lives that this really is a break when they actually find the internet in Alaska and come on for a show.
Absolutely.
And yeah.
We said, talking before the show, Ash, if you go to his Facebook page, he is up very close to the Arctic Circle, right? Like, he was on this like road trip yesterday, and he was saying that gas was like $7 a gallon up there, and yeah, it was. I don't know where he's actually going, but yeah.
And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, he said we got hit with a heat wave is now up to minus 20 below zero.
Yes.
You know, the actual real hero of this piece is his wife, Crystal, who is his companion. And as much as I like and respect Ash, I don't know that I would go on this outing with him. But apparently there are several people that they are meeting who love this kind of experience. And most of them still have 10 fingers and toes, no frostbite.
Which for Alaska is amazing in itself. And I think one of them also posted the other day that the sun is finally back in Alaska.
That's right. Certain, there are a couple, depending on where you are in Alaska, during the summer, because the Earth is rotated and pointed to the sun. In some places near the Arctic Circle, the sun never goes down; it just makes this big circle. And yes, there are a couple of days when the sun never rises too.
I can't imagine that. Like, I mean, Wisconsin here, we get dark at like 5 o'clock right now in the afternoon. And I mean, that's terrible enough. I'm sorry. Like, I like my daylight. I like being, out and active until like 9, 10 o'clock at night with the sun up all summer and that. And then it just gets so boring. I mean, like, I'm so used to being outside and that for bigfooting and all the other stuff that we do with caps, and then to have that cut short at 5 o'clock is just, it just sucks. I'm no other word for it.
Yeah, and what's interesting though is you have to try to find something to take up your mind. Physically, yeah, I think all of us in these upper latitudes, not outside so much, not doing things physically, but mentally, it's boredom that really gets people. It's not being physically out of shape. And this is where you hear about people going crazy. And in parts of the whole northwest coast, from Washington, Oregon, up through Alaska, some places it's not all snow, it's rain and rain and rain. And when you have people from, like, dare I say, California moving up to Alaska or Washington in the summer, they love it. But come wintertime, it's time to get out the bank of lights for the SAD disorder, where you need light. Mm-hmm. Not that anybody here in the audience is affected with any of that. And does Guy been making it on?
I'm working on Frank right now.
Okay.
He says it still won't let him in. So.
Okay. See, part of I'll continue ad-libbing, folks.
Thank you.
We're going to get you the talent soon. But part of the process that I went through to prepare to be on Alaskan Killer Bigfoot is something that was all part of my background, even my undergraduate work for anthropology. The Western contact. By that I mean not just United States American, but the Spaniards before there was United States of America, and the British and the Russians. They all went to look for the Northwest Passage. As a matter of fact, the Northwest Passage being this ideal that in the height of summer, sea-going ships could actually navigate between all of North America from the Pacific to the Atlantic without getting caught in ice flows, and that would be a much shorter trip across the Atlantic than, say, going from West Africa, heading due west across the Atlantic to get to Latin America. And so there were European sea voyages. Some people believe Captain Cook in the 1500s attempted to find that Northwest Passage. And so there were Europeans a lot up off of Alaska. And even before then, there were these Chinese voyages of exploration in the 1400s. And they primarily went south from China all the way to Africa and Madagascar. And so all of this, factors into the possibilities of who visited Portlock, because we know the Spaniards stopped there, and it was after the Spaniards claimed that land for Spain that they had an outbreak of scurvy on board ship, and the next day 8 sailors died. And Nathaniel Portlock, he landed on more or less the same spot, the same inlet, and also laid claim for England, and bad things happened too. So who else was there before? We had that coin from the 1500s, which is a possible tie-in to Captain Cook. And I pause again, Barnaby.
I'm trying to get him via phone now because he says it still isn't working. So we'll see if he can call in. So, but that'll be awesome. But
anybody have any questions that we can go to now?
We have some comments here.
Okay.
Scott M says, my brother-in-law lives in Homer, Alaska. He says it stays dark forever, but the northern lights are amazing.
Yeah. I remember when we were filming, when I was there for part of the filming, the sun did go down, but the light didn't leave. There was no real nighttime, not enough to see the stars. It was just this sunlight and then perpetual dusk for about 4 hours, and then the sun came up again. And this was just about the time of the summer solstice. Yeah, cool. Homer, great place. I enjoyed Homer.
Awesome. Lee also would like to know what people can do to get a season 2 of Alaskan Killer Bigfoot.
That's a great question. Among other things, there is a Facebook fan page for Alaskan Killer Bigfoot. It's got over 20,000 members, and this is really a testament to the fact that the show is real. There are only 8 episodes, the original show, and yet here we have people 2 years later still wanting and saying we want season 2. The best things to do is to actually go on. The show originally aired on Discovery Plus, and that platform is still up. Watch the show and add to the metrics by actually writing a review. Even if you don't quite like the show, well, if you don't like the show, give an honest review. That will give everybody clues as to what people want. But good reviews are better than mediocre ones. Let your voice kind of shout out, say we want season 2. Discovery Plus turned into, I believe, Max. So on the new platform, just comment on this. Visit the fan page, sign up for the fan page. What's really cool is that other Bigfoot centric podcasters also, and TV shows also kind of advertise on there and saying we have these events and those events. So it's become kind of a clearinghouse. So you will find more than just Alaskan Killer Bigfoot on the fan page. So those are the 2 best things. You vote with your wallet in a way, in that you watch the show, you pay for the streaming, and you comment and join the fan page and comment on the fan page too.
Absolutely.
As a matter of fact, Monsters on the Edge, gosh, they have a presence on the Alaskan Killer Bigfoot fan page too.
We do. We do. I'll put a link in the show notes here.
And I see from
Nancy would like to know, doesn't the lights at night mess up your circadian rhythm?
Yes, absolutely. In part, we're biological creatures, and so our bodies over the period of a year get used to the gradual. The days get longer, the days get shorter, incrementally in 365 days. In these northern and southern areas where it's just too massive of a change. Yeah, and that was part of what was disconcerting for me with that perpetual dusk, is what time is it really? And so it affects your sleep, and then memory, short-term memory, you're inhibited, and so yes, the SAD disorder, seasonal affective disorder. I'm not sure how many Alaskans have a whole bunch of lights in their garage, but it wouldn't surprise me if there are a lot of people purposely keeping the lights on up there.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the northern lights are actually like an electromagnetic phenomenon, right? They're part of the poles. So
yeah. It's essentially solar radiation bouncing off of the Earth's magnetic field, which surrounds the Earth. Is coming out from the north pole, surrounding the Earth, and so when it is strongest at the northern end of the planet, and so when the solar winds and the radiation hit the atmosphere and it bounces off of it, it does some of it passes through as these colored lights, and if you've heard occasions where like in Washington State, where they say, oh, the northern lights will be visible all the way down to Seattle. That is not all that unusual after a solar storm. And just a little while ago, we had a massive solar storm. But there was a solar storm event. Somebody else, I'm sure, will come up with the name of it. But in the 1800s, that was so super massive that the northern lights were seen virtually over the entire planet. And the high-speed communications network, which was the telegraph, the atmosphere was so ionized that telegraph operators could see it dancing off the telegraph lines. And there was one type of technology that used batteries, and they had to disconnect the batteries because the batteries were exploding. So they were able to actually key their telegraph and communicate without having any batteries, simply because of the static electricity. If that happened today, if the Earth were hit with something that massive, I'm sure we lose most of our satellites and probably the internet for days, if not for months.
Yeah. I think any kind of major solar flare or electronic EMP and stuff like that, that would wipe out everything. And if anything was connected to any of your electrical, your Wi-Fi, your computers, and all that was on, it would all travel right through and just destroy all of it. So that'd be a mess. Absolutely. Lee says
not to cause
mess. I mean, not to worry about it. Cast a dark cloud over your New Year's here, but
well, but I remember my Army days when we got the warnings about electromagnetic pulse, and they said, and this is in the 1980s when computers were actually more hardened than they are today, and they said, if we get an advanced warning something like this is coming, take all your electronics and dig a hole 18 to 24 inches deep, wrap it in aluminum foil, and then dump it there until after the event.
Wow. And that's real. I mean, it just takes one solar flare, and yeah, it's a fragile world that we live in. But anyway, on a lighter note, Lee says she saw the northern lights over Florida once. Wow.
I'm not surprised. I myself used to podcast, and I talked to a solar astronomer, because there's deep space astronomy, and there are astronomers who study solely our sun. And he said there are these ejections year round, many of them. The thing is because they travel in straight lines from the sun, where in relation to the ejection from the sun is the Earth. And so there are these massive ejections that if they hit the Earth, it would be very, very bad. But those are only pointed our direction every now and then.
Wow.
Yeah, this is such a downer. Welcome to 2024, people. See all these Facebook posts where everybody is so enthusiastic about this is going to be a better year.
It's going to be
and
great.
Here I am.
Solar flares and the end of the internet and electronics as we know it. Yep, there we go. Happy 2020.
Where would your podcast go? Where would your podcast go then?
Yeah, it would be a live interview show in person at a theater somewhere. There you go.
Yeah, maybe with somebody on a piano in the background with caption cards underneath.
Yeah, there you go. I'm going to learn to read teleprompters, the big cue cards we used to have.
I still,
all right.
I still do use them. Okay.
Teleprompters and cue cards.
Both of us are like looking down at under the screen for notes.
Yep. We are going to take our mid-break here for station identification real quick here. We are going to be right back on the Untold Radio Network, and then we're going to get into some Bigfoot and some other stuff and not be so down, hopefully. We'll be right back after this.
Show your support for the Untold Radio Network family of shows and join in on the conversation by using super stickers and super chats on YouTube. Got a question you want answered? Ask it live via a super chat and get real-time responses from our show's knowledgeable hosts and guests. Help keep the Untold Radio Network shows running strong. We need your support. Send your super chats and stickers now.
Awesome. And thank you guys all for being super chat members. I know we have a few listening and watching and stuff on YouTube. Thank you so much. Everything that you do and support here for the Untold Radio Network and all the shows is amazing. We can't do it without you. So we appreciate that. And every super chat member and every super chat sticker and all of that. And thank you for listening and watching to our network here. We are chatting with Jeff Davis, historian and archaeologist and all-around good guy here from Alaskan Killer Bigfoot. And tell me, I know you've worked on some other projects as well. What else have you worked on?
Well, the very first show where I was asked as a consultant was actually in the late 1990s, early 2000s. History Channel had a show called Haunted History. I don't know if you remember that. And so it was regional as well as city. And so Haunted History New Orleans, Haunted History San Antonio. And they had an episode, Haunted History Northwest. And so I had just put out my second book of true ghost stories in the Northwest. And the show producer, director contacted me. He's a guy named Joshua Alper. And he and I are still friends today. Super interesting, amazing guy. And so he was primary writer and if I'm remembering, showrunner as well as director. And so he actually flew up from Hollywood, and we spent 2 days driving around the Northwest, and then nudged him up towards the Puget Sound for other areas. And so it's one of these things, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with this or people watching this podcast. I know people watching this podcast have been involved in other podcasts or reality TV shows. In some cases, the showrunner or the director's writer contact an ordinary person who's had these experiences, and then they kind of talk them up, and they get them spun up, and so the person on the ground goes to all of their contacts locally and says, okay, this TV show's coming to town. They'd like to do interviews with everybody. Why don't you guys, be ready? And then this happened to me. There was a show that did this very thing. And then on the airplane trip over, the actual creative head said, no, I'd like to go with plan 2. And they never contacted us until they got back home. And I said, do you realize how you spun us up like that? And so that was my second experience. But Joshua was so real, so honest with me. I thought, this is how all Hollywood producers are going to be. And sadly enough, not. And I understand now it's not personal. The person you talk to, if you're watching this and these shows contact you, the person you're talking to is actually acting in good faith, but they have bosses and their bosses have bosses. And so at the last, can you still hear me?
I can. You're cutting up a little bit, but I can still hear you. You're pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. And so at the last minute, things like that happen, and they're not being mean-spirited intentionally. That's the nature of this business. And so, but you've got to be careful. As I asked Joshua about this, and he said to me, you'll know they're serious when they tell you what hotel they're staying at, because it means they spent money. And so those are my first experience was the best. And off and on I had other things, but the Dead Files contacted me in 2014. And so I think it was Brian Niffel was the director of that first one. And they were real. Steve DiChiavi is a real former Marine and retired homicide detective. And so they were this is the beginning of the show where they're trying to figure out how they're going to do the cinematography. And so we were at a place in Vancouver, Washington called Esther Short Park, where several muggings and a couple of killings happened in or around that area. And so as we were doing setups, we were both on our mark, and we were standing about this far apart for about 2 hours talking, waiting for the various, change this camera angle, or Jeff, your microphone's cut out kind of stuff. And so we had a great set of conversations. And I was lucky enough that I came across competently. And so at various times, and I did this on Alaskan Killer Bigfoot, all the shows have historian researchers, but I do my own research too. And so I seem to always be able to bring something new to the historic look of a property. And so I was lucky enough when they're in the Pacific Northwest to get the call. Do you want to participate in this show or that show? And I found it to be very rewarding, because again, this is another show where behind the scenes, they were pretty much as they are in front of the camera too. And I'm sorry, what happens is I don't just trail off, do I, Barnaby? I just stop.
Yes. And cut. Good. Awesome. Very good. See, you're talking about working on these TV shows. You're used to that. I've recited my line. I'm done. We're good. All right. Clear. Good.
Well, and here's the thing is they're not really, I'm not reading off a script. I was on a totally different show that I'm not going to mention. And I was actually handed a written note and said, here, why don't you just recite this? And one of the other people on the show said, if you have him do that, this then becomes a scripted show, and now you have to pay Screen Actors Guild rates for this. And so are you prepared to pay, it was at $1,500 or $2,000 a day now, plus residuals? And so there was a pause, and the director said, just go with your gut, Jeff. Again, this is a show that actually this show didn't air. It didn't make it past the vetting process, and that may be why. But so we come in knowing what we want to say, but it is truly spontaneous, and so I used to teach at a junior college, so I'm all the hand movements too. Sorry, folks. And so yeah, I do tend to talk in these sound bites but I'm that way normally too. You can ask friends and family.
If you, from my experience as well, if you do enough interviews, you realize that you only get certain amount of time. Because like if you do a live radio show or a television interview, they want 30 seconds and you get stopped. Yeah. And it's really hard. I've done a lot of them. I used to do professional wrestling. I used to own a haunted house attraction. And when we've had the news people come out, they want it cut and dry. Give me your elevator pitch and we're done. I'm going to ask you another question. And I know exactly what you mean. I'm used to just, here's the answer. All right, now do you have another question? I can yammer, but we can cut it short if you need to.
Well, and the interesting thing is when it's in production, when the audience sees it, it seems like you're on there forever to them. But when you're the person speaking, yeah, it seems I have so much more to share. And I've been really bad. I actually designed ghost walks for various towns and cities, and I have had people guest with me on these ghost walks because they're sharing their ghost story. And all of a sudden, Barnaby, I found myself saying, "Okay, your 30 seconds is up. You got to move to the next spot."
Yep. Because people like, if you get a captive audience that actually cares about what you're talking about, and I mean it's easy to just fall into that loop of just keep going. And yeah, I totally get it.
Yeah,
so,
and this is a deeply personal experience on people's parts.
Absolutely.
And everybody else up to them thinks they're crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And some people still do.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's true. So was Alaskan Killer Bigfoot the first Bigfoot or cryptid project that you worked on?
It actually is. And that's kind of surprising to me because of all the archaeology, anthropology work I did. I have a bachelor's degree in anthropology from Portland State University, and I worked for several years in the Pacific Northwest in the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest. If you've heard of Mount St. Helens, I volunteered for Seas as an archaeologist there, and also the Wind River District in Skamania County, Stevenson, which some people who are really up on their Bigfoot know is a Bigfoot free zone. No shooting, trapping, nor anything dangerous. And I did that for 4 years, and then I got a master's in archaeology, lived in England, and came back, and I worked on the Oregon side for the Mount Hood National Forest a couple of years too. And so I've got this background because part and parcel of doing archaeology in these areas is knowing traditions. I'm not going to say folklore is in cutesy stories, but traditions. These are the same stories people tell. That it's not just a cute story. It is these are these life lessons in not written down history. So there are these oral traditions that they believe is implicitly as more. How about this? More implicitly than George Washington never told a lie. But these are embedded part of their worldview, and so the for better and much worse. As American settlers moved in, they brought ethnographers with them who in the 1850s and 60s and 70s were visiting these various tribes and gathering their stories from people who grew up in a culture where their contact with American and European culture was very, very limited. So these traditions are a lot less affected, more pure, if you will. And there was a man named George Gibbs who wrote, I think it was Indian Tribes of the Washington Territory, and it was published in the 1850s. And he actually talks about Bigfoot, Sasquatch. And one of the stories he had been told was that at Fort Vancouver in the Hudson's Bay Company days, the wife of one of the employees, one of the native employees, was kidnapped. And this is down on the river next to the Hudson's Bay Company stockade, surrounded by wheat fields and apple orchards, that the Sasquatch had actually come down that far and kidnapped her. and so she was screaming, and everybody was chasing them, trying to recover her, and they got so close that the Sasquatch dropped her and took off into the woods. So these are stories within living memory that have their physical basis where I was working.
Now, when you were looking into the history and stuff, I know we kind of touched on other episodes and stuff about the history of Portlock itself and that, but did you actually dig into any of the history of Bigfoot itself and these creatures up there, the Nantinaq?
Yes, there were some, and here's where, trying to respect the fact that Keith and Guy and DJ, these are their traditions. I try treading a little lightly in retelling some of these traditions, because as an outsider, one is just simply rude, and two, I'm probably going to get it wrong. And so I tried leaving this opportunity for them. But there are things, it's hard to believe today that in the late 1840s, late 1850s, there was tremendous shipping, American shipping, going back and forth between Alaska and Central California, San Francisco. Some of it was the gold trade, the gold and fur trade up in Alaska, and gold coming from San Francisco by the furs. And so the San Francisco newspapers and Southern California newspapers were more cosmopolitan, had that worldview than you would think today. And so there were kind of ethnographic stories printed in the newspapers in Central California, including stories of what I would say is an ogre, is an elliptilicum, that is this magical creature that ends up kidnapping people, and it is a giant, and it would put people in a clam basket and carry them over their shoulder until it got to his house. And clam basket is a basket with a lot of sticks between bars, so it can fall off, and water can fall off, and so in a way it looks sort of like a wicker cage, and so that if you happen to have something proportionally that size, they'll be pulled down to the bars screaming for rescue. And so one of those stories came up, and and there is a Wikipedia page about Portlock, and like anything else in Wikipedia, some of the stuff you agree with, some of the stuff you don't. But in the reference section, they actually have newspaper articles coming from modern Alaskan newspapers, where people talk. Like in one case, this one man was in police custody for something, and he talked about not wanting to be in Portlock because of the creature there. And so these references, a lot of them are on the internet and they're available. And in some cases, because of the tradition of Sasquatch in the lower Pacific Northwest, local libraries in their reference section had a lot of these ethnographies available. There was a book put together a couple decades ago as part of an anthropology symposium called The Anthropologist Looks at Sasquatch, book 1 and 2. And you can find it for like $150 on eBay or other places. It's an interesting read where these anthropologists kind of do what anthropologists do, and they kind of start slicing and dicing things into like butterfly collecting. So these various stories about Sasquatch. Let's look at physical characteristics. Look at are they tall? Are they short? Do they have pointed ears or not? Do they carry clubs? Do they not? Do they hypnotize people with their voices? And there's this kind of analysis done. The really important thing is this is based off of ethnographic accounts with the people. I think one of the latest interviews they referenced in the 1930s. So a lot less contamination from Western radio and television in some of these ethnographies. I hope people find this interesting. When you get caught up in something, when you're so much of a specialist, it's always interesting to you. And so I hope people in the audience take some of what I'm saying and start looking for some of these references. And it will broaden your view on this. Similarly, Nathaniel Portlock and Bazan, the Spanish explorer was Bazan. Nathaniel Portlock was actually the colonial English explorer who visited the Portlock site. Their journals have been published. As a matter of fact, that was one of these obligations that these sea captains had at these voyages of exploration. They would go subordinate, and then they publish it in book form. Bazan's journals, which were written in Spanish, have been translated into English too, and so look for these, and you get into the guts, because we didn't have time to talk about a lot of stuff. For instance, Portlock mentions seeing a tree that somebody had cut the bark off the tree to flatten it off, and then they carved some kind of a message in it, and he thought it was Greek. Not English, not Latin, not Spanish. He would have recognized all them. He thought it was Greek. So how did these Greek-speaking writing people make their way up to the Cook Inlet and the Kenai Peninsula? That's some of these are mysteries that we're still looking at. I would ask people to write in more questions and or comments about, I would like to see more of this, I'd like to see more of that, or you intrigue me with, because that's how you plan out the next season, is answering questions from the audience.
Absolutely. I think another great way to get a season 2 would be just watching the show, because you can see the demographics of that, and if all of a sudden there's somebody's watching this episodes over and over and over, and there's this huge spike in people interested in the show the first season, that's going to go a long way through getting season 2. Now, I know that you might not know this, but we have a question in the comments here. Has anyone moved back to Portlock since the first show aired? I know that the whole premise of the show had nothing to do with Bigfoot. The premise was, they were going to resettle Portlock, and these, the guys that they sent up there were supposed to just kind of look around and see what they could do and stuff. So no matter if there's a show or not, they were planning to settle this area. What has come of that? What do you know? Are they back up there? Has there been any more expeditions by the cast or the village or any of them?
Here's where we go. To the best of my knowledge, they have not had a concerted, a consolidated effort to go further than they have. And I'm not sure of all the dynamics. Certainly COVID has something to do with them holding back and not doing anything more. And so I'm not sure if there are some more issues, or the whole economic repercussions from COVID. Parts of the world are still suffering from that. So I can't speak with authority about that. But a couple things happen. Pretty it's SYC, and I was talking to the guys, and at a certain point, somebody had a very large boat. They anchored in the inlet, and then when the Alaskan Killer Bigfoot guys, the cast and crew were elsewhere, they landed briefly and got out some cameras and did some audio shots. And I'm not sure, there are various people on YouTube who have documentaries saying, here, we investigated Portlock. And who am I to say don't do it, other than the fact that the site of Portlock is owned by the tribal corporation. It is their land. And so shouldn't people have respect enough to actually ask in advance before landing and saying you speak with authority and permission from the landowners?
Mm-hmm.
But this is a marker of how much curiosity there is and a desire for people to know what's going on there. For those of you who were listening to the last interview, it was great. It was Kyle and I for this last interview, and he said, I didn't even know what was going on either. They just hired me as a bear guard, and all this stuff started happening. And he had kept a diary. And at the beginning, every single time they had a weird incident or the noises from the woods, he would write it down. But by the end of their time on the land, it had gotten so commonplace that he just stopped writing in the journal. It was taking too much time. Yeah. And so I get the fact that everybody is curious. I mean, here we are talking about what an amazing place this is, and maybe the questions you have about the paranormal could be answered there if only you were there. But please have some restraint. Support us, support the show, support the landowners, and we can go forward and save people a lot of expense and time, and try and get these answers. Now I sound like too much of a sales pitch. I'm sorry. I believe what I'm saying. It's just so I've got Barnaby. I've got way too much of a soapbox here.
I'm sorry. No, I think you made some really good points there. I know for a fact, like I've spoken to the guys from Skinwalker Ranch as well, and to kind of compare and contrast these two things, like anytime that you're putting a property out there as mysterious and strange for the world to look at and put under this spyglass, if you will, of investigation, people are going to be intrigued. People are going to want to go there. And as easy as as easy as it would be to trespass, say, on Skinwalker Ranch, I know Portlock is not an easy place to get to by any means, but obviously people are still going up there. People that are, interested in this, people who are seeing the show and saying, well, if there's Bigfoot activity, if there's Nantinaq up there, I want to go see it. Just like you said, keep in mind, because this is not your property. This is not public land. This is private owned, by the people up there, by wherever you are. And, if you want to see it, you want to, go about it the right way. They do, investigations and tours and stuff of Skinwalker Ranch. The neighbor's property will take you out on UTV tours, and you guys up there, I'm sure that, if you went about it and got permission and stuff, they let people do it up there, because I know other Bigfoot researchers and investigators that have gotten permission to go up there and film and investigate. So just go through the proper channels with any of these things that you're looking at, any of these private areas or shows or stuff that you see on TV.
Yeah, absolutely. And agreeing with you at the same time, because this is a spectrum of interest that we're talking about. People who aren't interested at all, and they can't wait to go and rate the show, say it's terrible, to people who are intrigued by it and they're content to watch it on TV and learn that way, to people who feel that like they've got this paranormal message that they should be there and that they have this calling. And yes, I get that. I one time traded emails with this one woman who believed that she was clairvoyant, that she was psychic, and she felt the only way she could get better is by visiting haunted places and kind of exercising that psychic muscle. And she started talking about going to old decrepit places with no trespassing signs up. And I said, you really shouldn't do that. And she said, oh, no, we carry your books with us. And so if the police stop us, we'll show them your books. And I said, no, don't show them my books, because I'm telling you, don't go to these places. It's almost a common sense thing. If this place is decrepit and falling down, you know what? You can fall through the floor. The roof could cave in. And we've had numerous cases that were highlighted where people were in these basements, and they got pneumonia from the mold and mildew down there. And so earthly dangers are there even in spiritual, paranormal places. I don't legally speak for the tribal entity, but approach them and see if there's any kind of thing you can do. The easiest thing is you get no for an answer, but then you'll know. And so, and I also wave people away from cemeteries at night. There's a whole fad of doing paranormal investigations in cemeteries, and I'm not even going to touch belief. I have a friend who was doing readings in a cemetery, and she said the ghosts of the dead aren't here, because why would they be? That's just where their body was. If they were traveling with their body, they've gone home. What you get is you get an impression from everybody who was there at the funeral, mourning and crying. That leaves a stain. But the physical danger of being in a cemetery at night, drug deals gone bad, is a big thing. Vandals, people doing drugs. So I always advocate not. And if you do go in the daytime, don't chip off pieces of the gravestones as souvenirs, because that happens too. Again, if I soapbox too much for you people, I'm sorry, but these are Barnaby will agree with me. These are things that we encounter all the time on the part of people who are very, very enthusiastic, but they're not thinking things through all the way, repercussions of their actions.
Absolutely. It ruins it for everybody else as well. You know, I agree 100% with you on all that stuff. And I will add this too. If you're going out to Bigfoot and do all these things, you know, I encourage going out and looking for this stuff. Obviously, I mean, you know, you're never going to find Bigfoot sitting on your couch, but do it safely, because, you know, as you saw in the show we had on the last episode, Kyle, again, there's a reason there was a bear guard at this place. There's a reason there's an armed man whose job it is to keep the bears away and keep you safe. And if you're just out there anywhere, you know, Washington, Oregon, Wisconsin, what have you, you need to be aware of the other animals that are there, because even if Bigfoot doesn't come out and, you know, do anything with you, something else might. And that's even scarier than me interacting with one of those creatures. And as far as the cemetery, 100% I agree with you. I always tell people this, you know, when you pass away, are you going to haunt the cemetery, or are you going to spend time with your family? Everyone is going to spend time with their family and watch over them and that. And the things that you find that you do communicate with the cemetery are things you don't want to be encountered with, because all it takes is somebody to walk in and say, "Hello, is my grandma here?" And then this thing says, "Oh yeah, I'm your grandma." And now you have some real problems. So it's not
especially when you voluntarily take them home.
Exactly.
Yeah. And when Kyle was talking, one of the things that was very profound to me was, he's talking about the various species of bears, and he said he wasn't too worried about black bear, because they're essentially about the size as a human being, and most animals will run away from something their own size. And he's talking about, when grizzly bears, you know, if you surprise them, they can be dangerous. If you're after their food, they can be dangerous. But a polar bear is the only bear that will look at a human being as food, first and foremost, not a threat. And so, yeah, that's the reality of these extreme environments. Same thing when people want to pose with lions and tigers. I suppose if I were on you can get a buffalo to move wherever you want it to, so long as it wants to go there. That's an old cowboy expression.
Yes.
You know, it's just when the average American male weighs something around 200 pounds, and the average bison weighs 1,400 pounds, and you try and pet them and they step on you, what do you think is going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, and gosh, I wish the guys could have gotten the connection to come on, because they have so much more to add about living in an extreme climate like Alaska. One of the things that is almost like a contradiction. There are tremendous natural resources up in Alaska. Otherwise, we wouldn't be getting this glut of crab legs and salmon. You know, Alaskan caught salmon, Alaskan caught crabs. If these food sources weren't there, but the simple reality is, you have to be in the right place at the right time to capitalize on this. When the salmon runs are going on, and when the crabs are in the right place that's suitable to put out your pots. And it's necessary for traditional peoples to be in that right place at the right time, because if you're a week earlier, you're a week late, you're going to starve in the wintertime. And so it's, despite people going up to Alaska for the winter experience or the summer experience, people living there year round have a lot to contend with.
We have a question from one of our Super Chat members here. How many months of the year will the weather allow you to investigate at Portlock?
That's a great question. And the guys would be able to tell better, but the amount of time they were on the ground for season 1 was 8 weeks. And you remember watching season 1, episodes 1, 2, and 3, which were all, you know, put together from that earliest time period. There's still snow on the ground, and I think it was April. And so if I was to say like late April, late May, late June, that is about the time period. And so they could have gone on in a month, but I'm also here to tell you, just like getting back to the need for resources, the guys had real jobs they had to get back to. Fishing is a big occupation. And so if they were there in Portlock for this expedition too long, somebody would have had to do all the fishing for them. And if we get renewed for season 2, I would anticipate there'll be a couple months leading up to it, among other things, research and planning and coordinating. In straight line distances, most of the people on the show live in Nantinaq, and in line distances is only a couple miles away from Portlock, but you're going up and over mountainous ridges to get there. So the road is not the way to get there. It's by boat, and that's several hours of a trip through the Cook Inlet. And so, you know, these stars have to align. Pre-field research, meetings, and planning about what's going to happen. That'll take several weeks in advance, and there are different strategies to put together. I'm on the outside of this, but I've seen this happen. In some cases, in some of these TV series, there will be the cast, the director, and the producer and the crew, and they will take, say, 7 days to one episode, and then the director will leave with all the video and audio footage and go back to the studio and cut it together. And then at the same time, they shake hands with the second director, who will do that for episode 2, episode 3. So you can, within a couple weeks of hitting the ground, start putting out episodes. Or you have one director producer, and they do the entire field period, and then they go back and put things together. I am not sure what would happen, and these are only the 2 examples I've seen. Who knows what circumstances we'll need for season 2 of Alaskan Killer Bigfoot. So I hope that more than answers the question.
It answers a lot of questions. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Please bear in mind, I'm not the show producer. I don't make any of these decisions. And what I'm telling you is the experience I've gotten from being on several different shows. And I'm glad, Barnaby, that you've had all this experience too, because if I'm wrong, you'd be there to say, no, that's not how I've seen it happen.
Absolutely. Oh, it's very good, man. We are at the end of the show here. I thank you so much, Jeff, for coming on again. Yeah, I know. Again, like I want to apologize to the people that tuned in that, you know, like we said, we advertised the entire cast, and they were all on board as of even Friday of, yep, we'll be there, can't wait and stuff. And the diehard here, Jeff, I mean, by no means, again, do I mean to diminish you as a guest, because you are a wealth of knowledge on everything, you know, obviously historian and anthropologist and all this stuff. You are a fantastic guest. But there's just some stuff about, you know, Alaska and stuff that you just don't know, you know, like we said. So I apologize to anybody that had specific questions for anybody on the cast. I mean, Frank tried to get in while we were on here, but he just could not get it to log in. And I also saw Kyle could not make it. Ash is up in the middle of nowhere at the top of Alaska, heading towards the Arctic Circle. And I think DJ was at an airport and couldn't find time to log in, or it had to fit just right in a time frame. So, I mean, I'm happy with the way that the show turned out, and I hope everyone listening did too. So thank you so much. I appreciate it so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I will echo you and say, please, if I know a lot of you are disappointed, please believe that the guys did their best to be on the show. You were not blown off. This is the other part of living in an extreme climate is cell service is bad, internet is bad, and they're like us, they're living lives. And so just keep plugging away, and you will get a chance to see them and ask your questions of them live. We just have to work with the world we're living in.
Absolutely. We have one more question here for you. Jennifer asks, did the investigators leave out any trail cameras or long duration audio recorders that you know of?
Not that I know of. But then again, they could have, and they're just holding this close to the vest, waiting for season 2.
That's possible. Again, I think with my knowledge of this topic, I would say, based on the premise of the original show, which was, again, the resettling of Portlock, nothing to do with Bigfoot. None of the trail cameras or audio and stuff like that, they didn't go out there to investigate Bigfoot. So I would venture to say that they did not, because, like I said, this is their livelihood, this is their life. They're looking at resettling this land to expand the village, and I just don't think that was something that was done. And I would say too, on the note of a season 2, I think that it would have to go along with what the what do you call them, the tribal elders and stuff decide to do with the property. So if they do decide to move forward with resettling Portlock, if they deemed that there was enough resources, or, I mean, just from an outsider aspect, looking at the stuff that they captured on there, I would not be surprised if they deemed it just unsafe and we're not going back there again. So just keep that in mind too. It's not a Bigfoot show. It's a lifestyle show of the people up there. So
yes, absolutely. And you know what? That's what a lot of people, all the reality shows coming out of Alaska are people. Was it Deadliest Catch? It's not about the paranormal. It's about living life up there as a fisherman. And there are a couple of Man in the Woods shows because people really want to know.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So yeah, awesome. Jeff, thank you again so much for coming on. I appreciate it. And I will definitely invite you back on again. Let me know if you got anything cool coming up, if you're going to be on any cool new shows or researching anything for Bigfoot or cryptids or anything like that. Cause I'd love to talk to you again, as always.
Definitely. I've had a great pleasure too. And thank you everyone who's been watching this for your patience with both of us, with all of us. I always enjoy being on your show.
Awesome. Thank you much, man. All right. Take care, and a happy new year to you, Jeff.
You too. All right. Bye.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for bearing with me at the beginning of the show, trying to get the guys on here. I don't know what happened there. I'm so sorry, but I think it was a great show. Jeff is amazing. He has a wealth of knowledge as well. And it's always a good time catching up with him. and checking it out. So guys, coming up next week, I have Justin Decker on the show. He is an all-around cryptid guy, and he's going to be talking about all kinds of cool cryptids and things like that. So that's coming up next week here. Again, Happy New Year's to all of you guys. Make it a good one, because we're in this together. So until next time, guys, I'll see you on the edge.